Hi everybody, Olga here. Haven't seen you in a while. This is my first free talk after my maternity leave. I am very excited to be here with you, and I'm going to be talking about the mystery of Romanov death, and I'll tell you all of the premise of the story in just a moment. A really special thing about my talk today is that I'm actually doing it on two platforms. I'm doing this on Instagram with you here, and at the same time I'm also doing it on Zoom. So as I'm starting this, I'm also going to hit start on the Zoom meeting as well. So while everybody is joining, I'm also going to click start there. So in just a minute, I'm gonna start talking about this. Okay, we have people in the waiting room. Hi everybody, so wonderful to see you all. Hi, hello. Thank you for joining me today. So great to see you all after such a long break. Hello. Okay, I'm going to put it on gallery view. I'm going to mute everybody. Wonderful to see you all today. So great to see you. So the interesting thing about today's talk that is a first for me is that I'm doing it on two platforms at the same time. I'm doing it on Zoom, and at the same time I'm also doing it on Instagram. The reason for that is that I do want to put this content out there on Instagram, but at the same time I know a lot of you reached out to me before and said that you don't have an Instagram account, you would really like to see my talks, but the fact that they are on Instagram doesn't really work for you. So what I decided to do is to do it on both platforms at the same time. So here's how it's going to work, because the beauty of Zoom is that you can share your screen, which you cannot do on Instagram. So for those of you who are watching on Zoom, you'll see lots of pictures, you'll see some 3D 360 views. For those who are watching on Instagram, I printed out all of the pictures that I will be showing. So as I mentioned, this is happening on two platforms. And thank you so much for joining me today. Again, so excited. We have over 50 people that are registered on Eventbrite. So exciting. You can ask me questions about what's going on at any point today. You can put them in the chat. If you're watching on Instagram, you can also type the questions in the chat. At the end, I'm going to give you some time for Q&A. So also, please feel free to ask any questions. So let's start. Again, so happy to see you here. I knew, of course, as a tour guide in St. Petersburg for a while, kind of the basic story of our last royal family, their death, and the destiny of their remains. But I didn't really know it in detail. I myself had a lot of questions about it that, as a tour guide, there's so much going on in your life. You keep learning so many new things that, I never really researched that particular question. What happened to the remains of the Romanovs? How were they discovered? How exactly were the DNA tests held? But now that I have a baby and I spend a lot of time breastfeeding or cuddling with my baby, what I do as I'm doing that is I watch a lot of documentaries, and sometimes I read articles on my phone. And so finally this week I kind of stumbled into a documentary about the death of the last Romanovs and what happened to their remains, about all of the expertises and all the searches and all the excavations that took place, all of the debates around it, and I got really interested, and I thought it's finally time for me to learn more about the subject. I started researching more, and so this is what I'm going to be telling you about today. So the premise of the story, for those of you who are not too familiar with our last royal family, so our last royal family ruled Russia at the end of the 19th century, in the early 20th century, and their rule ended with the Russian Revolution. Our last emperor, whose name was Nicholas II, was arrested in March 1917, and he was forced to abdicate the throne, and really soon his whole family was put under house arrest. And he had quite a big family. He had a wife, he had 5 children, 4 girls and 1 boy. And at first, they were placed under house arrest in one of the residences in Pushkin, or Catherine's Palace, to be precise. The thing is, though, really soon after their arrest, the revolution happened, and then the civil war started. It became really clear that keeping the royal family at, kind of like at the epicenter of the revolution might not be a good idea, because the people who supported monarchy could come and liberate them anytime. And St. Petersburg is so close to the Baltic Sea that the royal family could also really easily escape. In fact, they were hoping to escape. They asked the British royal family to help them escape, and they were hoping to do that for a while, but the king in England, King George V, realized that the people in England were not supportive of that idea. So ultimately, they gave up on that idea. And the current government decided that our royal family should be taken someplace else, a little bit further from all of this, hustle and bustle of the revolution, so to say. And they were moved first to Siberia, to the town of Tobolsk. And that was really far away from St. Petersburg. They were kept there for a while, but then the civil war was happening, and the new Soviet government, Vladimir Lenin, realized that it also wasn't a good idea to keep the royal family in Tobolsk for 2 reasons. The first reason was that the people in Tobolsk, in Siberia, mostly were anti-monarchy, and they were probably pressuring the Soviet government to get rid of the last royal family, while maybe Lenin wasn't 100% ready to do that. They did not want to murder them yet, but people were unhappy. They said, well, why, you're paying money, you're taking care of them, we don't like that. At the same time, the White Army was there too. The white officers were the ones that supported monarchy, and there was a chance that they would liberate the royal family. So because of these 2 things, Vladimir Lenin and the Bolsheviks decided that the royal family, it had to be moved to a new location. And so that location was chosen to be the Urals region. And the city where they were going to be moved was called Yekaterinburg. So you might have heard of that place before. And in fact, this is where I share my screen with you for the first time. I'm going to show you a place where the royal family was kept. So those of you watching on Zoom, you will see that on your screen. And if you're watching on Instagram, I have a picture of this as well. So here it is. So this is the house where the royal family was kept. It's called Ipatiev House. And Ipatiev, it was the last name of the previous owner that owned the house before the Russian Revolution. And the conditions under which the royal family was kept there, they were pretty strict. For example, you see the house on your screen, or you see the house in the picture here. The house was surrounded by a really tall, a really thick fence. The windows of the house were painted over with white paint. And the royal family was only allowed to be outside for an hour a day at first, and then it got even changed to half an hour a day. So pretty much they were confined to their rooms. And originally they had a piano in there. The piano was taken away from them. They had a set of cameras because the royal kids really liked photography. They were taking pictures, so those cameras were taken away from them. Nicholas and Alexandra built a little play structure for the kids in the courtyard, and the officers who were watching them, they destroyed the play structure. So this was really the conditions were really strict. And nowadays, that a lot of the documents about this whole story are out and available to people. We actually can read the memories of the officers that were guarding them. And one of them said in the documents that we really didn't want them to feel like guests here. We wanted them to feel like prisoners. We did not want them to have any fun. We did not want them to enjoy it. So that's why all these things were taken away from them. I have another picture here for those on Zoom, and this is for the Instagram viewers. This is one of the rooms in the house. You can see the original interior from when Merchant Ipatiev lived here. This is a dining room, as you can see. And basically, this is how it remained when the royal family moved in. And speaking of it being a dining room and them enjoying meals here, the royal family were not the only people that were staying in Ipatiev's house. Together with them, there were 4 more people. They were basically the most loyal servants that stayed with the royal family till the very end. It was their doctor. His name was Dr. Botkin. It was really important for them to have a doctor with them because Prince Alexis, the son of Nicholas and Alexander, he had hemophilia, and it was important to have a doctor that could be able to constantly assist their boy. They also had a cook. His last name was Kharitonov, and one of the articles that I read on the matter, in fact, was written by his great-grandson, who is a historian now, and you know, he has a special connection to the story, of course. So he kept cooking meals for the royal family, and a really sweet detail, he taught the Grand Duchesses how to bake bread, so they were constantly busy. There was also a maid and a valet, so 4 loyal servants constantly stayed with the royal family. So altogether, the family was here for 78 days until July 1918. And right now, in some historic sources, some people believe that it was Vladimir Lenin that actually sent a telegram to the people that were guarding the royal family and telling them that it was time to murder them. So far, we don't know of any such telegram, and most likely Vladimir Lenin was not did not order to have the last royal family murdered. Most likely, it happened because of the initiative of the guardians themselves. They wanted to get rid of the last royal family. Why would they do that? Well, that was because the general mood in the Ural region, where most of the people were the proletariat, unlike Siberia, was really anti-monarchist, and they really believed that it was Nicholas's fault that the country was suffering so much and that he didn't deserve to live, basically. And they wanted to murder the last royal family. In fact, we know that there was even an attempt to murder them. The guardians were looking for some sort of excuse to do it. They thought, well, if they try to escape, now that would be a good reason to do that. They were not trying to escape, and nobody was trying to rescue them. So here's what they came up with. They started sort of like a fake campaign to rescue them. So they had they pretended to be a white army officer. They started writing letters to Nicholas in French, saying that there is a campaign to rescue you. You guys should try to escape, and we will pick you up. We'll take you to Europe. You should climb out the window, and giving them all these plans. But Nicholas, after reading several such letters, he analyzed the situation and he realized that it wasn't a good idea. So he refused to try to escape. So this campaign of trying to get them out and then murdering them did not work. So and again, I know all of this because their memoirs and their just memories of the event are now available to the public. They had a couple more ideas of what they could do to the royal family, and one of them was that maybe they should just come and shoot them in their sleep. Another one was to invite them to a room in the basement and just throw hand grenades in there. Finally, they settled on the plan that they executed, and that was to tell them that they were being moved to a new location, and then to just shoot them. So another memory, another thing that they mentioned. So at night they woke them up, and they invited them to the basement. When they came to the basement, Nicholas asked for some chairs so that they could sit while they were waiting, because he wanted his wife to be able to sit, and then again the son was sick, and when they came to bring them chairs, they whispered, oh, they want to die sitting. Anyway, the royal family did not know yet that this was what was happening. And as they were waiting to be moved to the new location, the officers came into the basement, and they read the death sentence. They said that they are now sentenced to death. Nicholas, it came as a surprise for him. He said, "What?" And the officers said, "Here is what," and started shooting the whole family. I have another picture for you here. And this is the room where the murder happened. The picture was taken already afterwards, and you can see on the walls there are traces of bullets. Everybody, so 11 people altogether, the royal family and 4 servants were shot here. One little fact about this whole situation that is pretty well known, you might have heard it before, is that they started, the instructions were to aim at their hearts, but as they started shooting them, the bullets ricocheted from all of the female members of the family, because they had jewels that were sewn into their corsets. They were hoping that when they finally reach Europe, that they would be able to, you know, establish their life there. So they brought jewels with them. And so the bullets ricocheted, and after the shots were over, the soldiers realized that pretty much all of the female members of the family were still alive. And the grim reality of it is that they finished them with bayonets, and eventually the royal family was dead. There was a plan to get rid of the bodies in a nearby coal mine that was close by. The whole time of the shooting, there was a truck in the courtyard, the truck that was working because they wanted the noise, to distract all the passersby from what was going on there in the mansion. And so the bodies were put in the truck and taken to the area of the coal mine. I have a view for you here. For those of you who are watching on Zoom, you can see a little monument here. It's called the Tsar's Children, and you can see that on Instagram as well, the Tsar's Children Monument. So this is what is on the place of the coal mine right now. There are these beautiful churches around as well. So this is a monastery that was recently built on the place to commemorate the royal family, and the little monument here is called Tsar's Children. Of course, what bothers most people in the situation is that the children certainly didn't do anybody any harm and shouldn't have been murdered here. So the plan was to throw the bodies into a coal mine, and before they did that, they put acid on them, and another plan was also to burn the bodies. So as they started burning the bodies and taking the clothes off of them, that was when the officers found all the jewels that were in the corsets. And for a minute there, they got distracted by all of these jewels. They started grabbing them. That took some time. They also realized that the jewels were just falling onto the ground, and they wanted to destroy this evidence. Ultimately, when they started burning the bodies, they also realized that that was not happening as fast as they wanted. The morning sun already came up, and they had to hurry. So what they did was they ended up throwing the bodies as they were into that coal mine there, and then they threw some bombs in there, some grenades, because they were hoping that whatever the dirt around would just fall down and cover the bodies, and that was their way of hiding them. But that didn't work for them. Nothing fell, nothing covered the bodies. It was already super late, it was the light of day. People were out there, they could be spotted at any time. So they had to act quickly. So they grabbed the bodies and they moved them to a new location. But the thing is, for a really long time afterwards, nobody knew what location that was and what exactly happened to the bodies. So if we imagine now ourselves in the summer of 1918, that is where it all stops. The royal family gets murdered. The bodies get taken to the area that I just showed you. And then nothing. Well, we don't know of anything else. A couple months later, a detective that supported the royal family, he was a monarchist, comes to the area in order to investigate the crime. At that point, Ipatyev's house was just open. Anybody could come in there, look at it. So he went in, he gathered evidence, he found lots of witnesses, and then he also walked around the territory to try to find any other evidence. I have a portrait of him for you, and the map of the territory that he created. So his name was Nikolai Sokolov. He walked around the territory and he found the traces of what happened that night. He saw fires, he saw bullets, some bullets were stuck again in the royal family's clothes, so he found bullets in there. He found just pieces of jewels, the jewels were broken with bullets, so some pieces were there in the ground. He found traces of fire, but he didn't find the bodies. So that's when he created the map. He started walking around the territory and documented pretty much everything that was there. He probably would have eventually found the bodies, but it was the time of civil war. By the time that he arrived to the area, the Ural region was generally dominated by the White Army, right? In general, the White Army were against the Bolsheviks. So he was free to go and search and investigate the case, but eventually, again, it got occupied by the Red Army and he had to leave. So he did not finish his case, though he had about 18 giant folders of all the evidence, all the documents, all the stuff that he gathered. And he was able to immigrate to China. He spent some time in China, and from China he was also writing to the British royal family, hoping to give them the documents. But again, he was denied. Eventually he traveled from China all the way to France, which is where he ended up living and where he died. And after his death, all of the documents that he gathered were sold at Sotheby's auction. Eventually, they ended up in Russia. And eventually, decades after he tried to research the case, they got to the Russian investigators. The bodies were eventually discovered. Isn't that amazing how much mystery there is already about this whole story, right? The fact that the bodies are missing, nobody knows where they are. Well, we are moving from 1918 all the way to 1979. The reason why there is such a long gap between the dates is because once our country officially became the Soviet Union and the Soviet government got fully established, it was forbidden to research the case and look for the bodies of the royal family. People who attempted to do so were either put to jail or admitted to mental institutions. So, people did not risk too much to do that. But in 1979, there was this other detective that decided to research it in hopes to create a documentary about the last royal family. His name was Geli Rabov. And he had some people that he knew in the local Ural police station. And so basically, he claimed that he was creating a documentary about the history of local police. So he was allowed to go into the archives and look at the documents. And he ended up actually looking at the documents about the royal family. And what he found there were the documents that were left by Nikolai Sokolov, who researched the whole story. And when he was studying the maps that were created by Nikolai Sokolov, he found a really interesting thing. He found that when he was researching the area, he noticed a new little bridge across a swamp, the bridge that was made out of railroad parts. And it was noted, a new bridge made out of railroad parts that people hadn't seen before. He thought that this new bridge made of such a weird material could be something. And amazingly, it is true. So here is the bridge. You can see the photo of that time, a modern photo. These are the railroad parts right here. For the Instagram viewers, this is the photo of 1979. This is the modern photo. So he went to the area. He managed to find the bridge right there, and he started excavations there. It was a huge surprise that he did manage to find some bones in there. And he thought that these must be the remains of the royal family. He applied to higher institutions for official excavations to be allowed, but this was denied, and poor man had to actually put the bones back into the ground and leave. And so this is where our story stops again, and it stops until 1991. Now, again, those of you who are interested in Russian history might know that 1991, it was the turning point in the history of our country. We finally were not the Soviet Union anymore, we collapsed, and things in general became much more liberal, more things were now allowed, and there was a new expedition that was sent to the area that you're seeing now, and they started looking for the remains. You can see another picture here where these archaeologists are looking at the remains of the royal family. So the bones were in this condition. They were not skeletons, and they really had to work hard on figuring out, which bones match to which skull, and they put numbers on every little piece and put it all together that way. They started working on identifying who these people were, trying to prove that these people indeed were the royal family, and this is where another problem appeared. Based on the documents, at this point, they knew that there were 11 people. The royal family, 7 people, and then 4 servants. But the problem was, when they found the bodies, there were only 9. So 2 were missing. Now, maybe that meant that this is not the royal family after all, right? They started using other methods to figure out what this is, and one of the people who was working on the case used this really interesting method that not everybody approves of, but basically he used photos that the royal family took. He took the skulls and he tried to reconstruct what the faces would look like by applying special sort of like resin, rubber onto the skulls, and then using photos to figure out, whether those were really the royal family members or not. And he proved that they were. He proved that out of the royal family, we could find Nicholas, the Tsar, his wife Alexandra, and their 3 daughters, Olga, Tatiana, and Anastasia. So 3 of the daughters were there. Based on his theory, the 4th daughter, whose name was Maria, and the son, Alexis, were not there. Now, we did not know where they were. Plus, not everybody agreed with the method he was using. They thought that this method was not scientific enough, trying to just figure it out based on the photos. Nevertheless, in 1998, the bodies that were discovered there in the area, they were buried in St. Petersburg, in Peter and Paul's Cathedral, where the rest of the Russian royal family is buried to this day. The beauty of the fact that the bodies were discovered in the 90s was that science was developing, and another thing that was available to them was DNA tests. And when it was actually also a happy coincidence, because the person who was in charge of this investigation was flying on the same plane with one of the people who were working at the Hermitage. And they said to him, at the Hermitage, we actually have a shirt that belongs to Nicholas II, and it still has traces of his blood. So you can see the shirt here. You can see the shirt here as well. So you can see there are blood drops on the collar and on the chest of the shirt here. What happened? Why does this shirt exist at the Hermitage? Why is there blood on the shirt? Well, when Nicholas II was a young man, before he became the Russian emperor, he took a trip to Japan. You can see this photo of him in Japan. And there was an attempt to assassinate him. He was attacked and he was stabbed. And so there was blood on his shirt. He brought the shirt back to St. Petersburg. It stayed in the Hermitage as a museum exhibit. Here's the photo. It stayed in the Hermitage as a museum exhibit. And it allowed, in 1990s, for the researchers to try to identify that the DNA in the blood on the shirt matches the DNA of what they thought was the skeleton of Nicholas II. The crazy thing is that the Hermitage did not allow the lab to cut out pieces of the shirt. They couldn't just, do it, and they were lucky that a lot of the blood was concentrated on these really hard parts of the shirt, the collar, for example. So they were able to basically scratch the blood off, put it on a piece of gauze, and that is what they used in the lab, and they were able to prove that that truly was the blood of Nicholas II. So at this point, we already had lots of evidence. First of all, the DNA matching from the shirt and the skeleton. We had that method that not everybody approved of, but some people believed in, of portrait reconstruction, where one of the researchers used the photos and the skulls of these people. And now the only problem was, well, where are the other two bodies, right? Where is Prince Alexis? Where is Grand Duchess Maria, if that is her? At that point, the bodies that had been discovered were already buried in St. Petersburg, as I mentioned. And another research team went again to the area, and eventually, close by, they found two more bodies. It turned out that Prince Alexis was the only person in the whole group that was still dressed when they tried to dispose of his body. And if you see historic photos of Prince Alexis, you might see that he's often wearing this sailor's shirt that is striped. And they found a piece of fabric there that was striped like that. They also were able to use DNA tests, and they matched the remains of Prince Alexis with the remains of his mother. And they found the hemophilia gene there together, so they were able to match them as well. So now it is officially believed that all the bodies have been discovered, and now they all are buried in Peter and Paul's Cathedral in St. Petersburg. Unfortunately, not all of the members of the current Romanov family agree with it. Some believe that this research has been falsified. They don't believe that those are the real remains. At the same time, the Russian Orthodox Church also does not believe that these might be the real remains, because we have some methods that were questionable there. But nevertheless, this is the official theory on the question right now. Again, the area where they first tried to get rid of the bodies is now a monastery, and the house, Ipatiev house, where the royal family was kept, now doesn't exist. On the spot of the house, on the spot of the murder, there is now a church, which, by the way, is also called Church on Spilled Blood. Those of you who have been to St. Petersburg might heard this name. So they call it the Church on Spilled Blood as well, because the blood of the last royal family was spilled there. And the Russian Orthodox Church officially believes that the last royal family are martyr saints. So when you come to Russian Orthodox churches, you would often see the icon that has a picture of the whole royal family. So this is the story. I just learned it. I just did all of this research this week, and I really wanted to share it with you. I would love to answer questions. Please feel free to ask them in the chat. I just want to tell you that I'm not a chemist and I do not know forensics, so I would not be able to answer maybe about some of the technicalities. But other than that, yeah, please feel free to ask questions. I would love to answer. I see a question. Well, maybe some of you are typing. What information do you have about those who made the jewels for the Tsar other than Fabergé, particularly those jewel designers and makers who moved in Odessa? What an interesting question. I would not be able to answer it right now, I'll be honest with you, but I have to say that I've been interested in the jewelry of the royal family for a long time, and this could be something that I could look into and could research and maybe create some content about the jewelry that belonged to the royal family, because that sounds great. And some of you are saying that you were in that church. I wonder if you mean the one in Yekaterinburg or the church on Spilled Blood in St. Petersburg. Great question. Why wouldn't soldiers keep the jewels themselves? Yeah, that's what happened. Maybe I wasn't 100% clear. That is what happened. They took the jewels out of the corsets of the Grand Duchesses and the Empress, but because they were shooting them, the jewels, some of the jewels, they broke. Pieces of them broke, and some of them were really small. And when the soldiers tried to burn the bodies, kind of in the middle of the night, some of these pieces is what fell into the ground, and they wouldn't be able to pick them up. But in general, this is exactly what happened. They took the jewels for themselves, and the house remained the way it was several days after the royal family was murdered, because they tried to keep it, to make it look the way it did before for all the people that were living in the town. But soon afterwards, the house was open and anybody could come in, and people just looted the house. They took other things that belonged to the royal family for themselves, and so a lot of their belongings were taken out. I have some comments, very interesting. I'm glad you liked it. Do you know what happened to the wider Russian royal family? For example, the rest of the nobility. England did send a ship to Russia that some of Russian nobility used to escape the country. Those of you who might have heard of the Yusupov family, for example, I shared about that. Or some distant relatives to the Russian royal family, they were able to escape the country. Among them, for example, is the mother of Nicholas II. She was able to escape. The ship was called Marlborough, by the way. And so a lot of other members of the royal family were also on that ship, and eventually they immigrated to the West. Some of them are in Europe right now, some of them are in the US. It's more the close royal family that were murdered, and some of their relatives that stayed in Russia, they did eventually get executed by the Bolsheviks, but a good amount of them did manage to escape. You're saying your guide rushed you in the church on spilled blood in St. Petersburg. I'm really sorry to hear that. Okay, what happened to those claiming they were Anastasia and other claimed survivors? Wonderful question. So I know of the two members of the last royal family that imposters said they were. Of course, Anastasia was one of them. And the most famous Anastasia imposter, her name was Anna Anderson. And she claimed that she was Anastasia, but she did not remember much. And if you look up her picture, if you look up Anna Anderson, Anastasia, you will see that, yeah, she sort of looks like the rest of the Romanovs. She has these big eyes. Some other facial features are really similar to the last royal family. And Nicholas II, he had a sister. Her name was Olga. She was one of those people who survived and left Russia. And Olga traveled all the way to Anna Anderson to try to talk to her and figure out whether she truly was Anastasia. And she said that she wasn't. She said that definitely wasn't Anastasia, so that was that. And now that we have DNA available, there was actually a DNA test that was done on the remains of Anna Anderson, and it was proven that she wasn't real Anastasia either. And another member of the royal family that got impersonated was Prince Alexis. But now, I mean, the official point of view of historians is that there's no way Prince Alexis would have survived just because of his hemophilia. There's no way that he would be able to live that long and, with such a disease. So these are the two big imposter stories that I know of, and that they were proven wrong. For a long time, King George of England denied exile of the Romanovs to England, but eventually, when he almost was convinced to grant the exile, the royal family were either on their way to being murdered or were murdered. I forgot which. But interestingly, the King of Spain was in favor of rescuing the royal family. How interesting, Paula. I have not heard of that. I'm so glad you mentioned that in your comment. Vivek, I'm glad you like this. Very interesting, great insight to major incidents of Russian history. Yes, I'm glad you enjoyed it. I love the whole fact that I have so many people that are willing to listen to my stories and the new things that I learn about Russia or about some art that can be found in Russia. So I appreciate you joining me today. I'm still gonna give you a couple minutes. If you have any more questions, please feel free to ask. I am recording this, and I will share the recording on Monday in my regular newsletter. What part of Russia are you from? I'm from St. Petersburg. I think it's the best part. And this is where I work as a tour guide in St. Petersburg. Jerry, I'm so glad you enjoyed it. Thank you again for staying in touch with us for so long. Kathy, thank you also for all of your wonderful comments. This is great. I see that some of you are asking me questions about me, and I wonder if you discovered this through Eventbrite, and maybe you are not signed up for my email newsletter. So please, I'm gonna just quickly share a link to sign up for my email newsletter. This is the website that I will share in the chat in just a second. You can enter your email address, first and last name here, and click subscribe. You will immediately get a recording of one of the tours that I did called In Soviet Russia. That is about St. Petersburg through the lens of Soviet history. And then every Monday you will get my newsletter. So if you are interested, if you have not yet signed up, I'm gonna just put this in the chat. Just remember that it is only going to be here while this call is going on. When the call is over, this will not be here anymore. So thank you. I'm really glad you were here. I appreciate all the questions you were asking. Oh, awesome, Elaine! You found out about me through Flossmoor Library. That's cool. I have 2 more virtual tours coming up with Flossmoor Library in July. So really excited to be doing that again. Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much, everybody. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Thank you. Oh, and I have a question. A couple more. Thank you. Who was the next in line of succession and lived after the murdered family? And what happened to him? Ooh, so this is a really cool question. Nicholas II had a brother. And when he abdicated the throne, he actually abdicated it so that his brother gets it. And his brother, though, realized that he did not want to be a part of it. Being a Russian Tsar was risky business at that time, and he immediately abdicated the throne, himself really quickly. So he did not want to be a Russian Tsar. The next in line also would be his son, Prince Alexis. But what Nicholas did was he abdicated the throne for himself and his son. So that legally then his son also could not get the throne. Now, as far as I know, the question of who would inherit the throne next was really vague, because the rules of succession were that after the Tsar, the next in line would be the male child, the son, and then the brother. Now, both of those people abdicated, and as far as I know, the royal family would have to decide, the extended royal family would have to decide who would rule the country next. Now, Nicholas had lots of cousins who would be willing to rule the country. And I know a lot of them were talking behind the emperor's back that they would do a better job. But there is no, as far as I know, there's no exact rule of who that would be. The royal family would have to decide who would be next. And yeah, a lot of them did survive. Let's see. I have some more questions. Can you make another suggestion as to how to subscribe, as this did not occur? Yes, there is another suggestion. I am going to leave my email address in the chat. So my email address is now in the chat. Feel free to email me and I will sign you up for the newsletter. It's my first and last name at gmail.com. Olga Karneman at gmail.com. Did Duchess Anastasia actually survive, or was that also a hoax? Yeah, as I shared, we definitely know that she did not survive. She was really quickly identified among those bodies, and it was definitely a hoax. Thank you, everybody. Thank you. I'm glad you enjoyed it. I appreciate you joining me today. The recording will be available on Monday, and everybody have a wonderful rest of your weekend. Bye.